Hey, cinephiles, and welcome to Lolo Loves Films. Today I'm sitting here with my backseat driver, Big J.
Hey, everybody.
And today we're here to discuss Cars 3. This is the third film in the Cars franchise from Disney Pixar. It stars the voice talents of Owen Wilson, Cristela Alonso, Larry the Cable Guy, Armie Hammer, Nathan Fillion, and Chris Cooper. So, Big J, please give us a summary for Cars 3.
Lightning McQueen is brought back to the forefront. He is now the veteran racer, and he's at the top of the mountain of the racing circuit. That is until the younger crop of high-tech cars come out, and they start to overtake him in the races. Now he has to go back into training and decide whether or not he has what it takes to compete with these younger cars.
So we watched Cars 1 and 2 again before we watched Cars 3, and I think that Cars 1 really gets a bad rap. I feel like though Cars 1 is on the lower end of Pixar's scale of greatness, it is not a terrible movie.
Cars 1 is fine, but Cars 2 holds the distinction of being the only Pixar movie with a splat on Rotten Tomatoes. And I think that Cars 3 is Pixar's apology for Cars 2 being all about Mater.
You mentioned that it's their apology movie. Cars 3 feels like it could have been Cars 2. There was no need for Cars 2 to even exist. It's sort of silly that they made Mater the forefront of that movie, but now Larry the Cable Guy has taken a giant step back in Cars 3, which is thank God for that.
Lightning McQueen has been brought back to the forefront of this movie. It is mostly about him. We saw the teaser trailer where he had the big crash, and we thought that would be a big focus of this movie, but it's really not. This is more about the aging athlete having to compete with the younger generation where he has to go back into training. That big crash is just kind of a footnote in the whole movie.
Yeah, Disney and Pixar are definitely trying to get back to the roots of this franchise, back to that focus on small town America, and Lightning McQueen basically is the veteran that he resented in the first Cars movie. He is now that grizzled, old, broken down spirit, and this cream of the crop bunch of new high-speed racers are the ones that are the cocky upstarts. So Lightning McQueen has to, again, go back to his roots. He tries to go find Smokey, who is Doc Hudson's trainer, to see if he can get any insight there about how his own trainer grew up and was a champion.
I know other people have made this reference. This movie does kind of borrow from like Rocky IV because Lightning McQueen goes back to that dirt track racing. He trains on the dirt tracks while the young guys are training in the high-tech facilities. He tried that, didn't work for him. So he goes back to that old style of training out in the woods. Though it doesn't fully follow that formula, it kind of changes midway through, and we'll probably talk about that later. It was kind of a spoiler to talk about that, so maybe we'll mention it after we give our scores.
The other main character introduced in this movie is Cruz Ramirez, voiced by Cristela Alonso. She is Lightning McQueen's trainer. She is the one that pushes him very slowly at first to get to where he needs to be mentally and physically to be able to compete with Armie Hammer's Jackson Storm. Now, there is a giant plot point involving this character of Cruz Ramirez. Some we can talk about, some we can't talk about. We don't want to spoil here on this channel. But Cruz Ramirez and Lightning McQueen have this relationship where she tells him how she thinks he should get back and attain his greatness. Lightning McQueen, on the other hand, has to mansplain to her why everything she has to say is not correct, and he wants to do it his way, of course. They butt heads, and they have to eventually come to an understanding so that they can both kind of check their baggage at the door and move on to become the better cars that they know they can be.
There are some things we liked about Cars 3. The animation is really good, especially in the backgrounds. The water's like photorealistic. The forest, the chain link fences, all that is done really well, and that's just par for the course for Pixar.
Ever since the short film Piper, Pixar has only exceeded my expectations for what their worlds look like. The animation is stellar when it comes to water, trees, mountains, rocks. It almost looked at one point like they had taken these characters and implanted them into the real world.
That being said, the story itself never really gripped us. We were kind of, sitting there and the story kind of meanders along a lot. And we never really get invested in McQueen's comeback.
Right. Cars 3 is kind of a bland movie. It never really packs that emotional punch that I want from a Pixar or a Disney movie. I actually felt bored a lot of the time while we were watching this movie. And interestingly enough, there were a few kids around us when we saw it as well. They took out their phones. They were bored too. And if the kids in the audience are bored, then the adults in the audience are going to be bored as well. Even Larry the Cable Guy and Owen Wilson's voiceover work sounded bland and uninspired. And Cristela Alonzo and Armie Hammer do excellent voice work, but not enough to pick the picture up where it needs to be in terms of greatness. I want to be invested in Pixar's work. They have made some fantastic, emotional, really well-made movies. We wish that Pixar would go back to taking bold, interesting risks to make bold, interesting films instead of playing it safe for the sake of merchandise. It seems like that's all they want to do is sell toys.
Cars 3 is a somewhat forgettable, unnecessary sequel, and I wound up giving it a 5 out of 10.
And I'm right there with you, buddy. I'm giving it a 5 out of 10 as well. Hopefully this is the end of the Cars franchise as we know it. I don't feel like I need to see another Cars movie. I've seen it all before. Get back to doing more interesting, different things, Pixar. So thank you very much for listening. But right now, what we want to do is we want to put a big spoiler alert up on the screen because there's something we've been itching to talk about. We have to get it out. So if you have not seen Cars 3, turn away, avert your ears, do not listen. We are going to talk spoilers starting now. The ending.
The ending of this movie is so disingenuous. They build this whole movie up about Lightning McQueen's comeback, and then halfway through the final race, he just quits the race. He's like, oh, I can't beat these guys. I'm going to quit. And then he passes the baton to the other car.
Yeah, he passes the baton to Cruz Ramirez halfway through the end of this race. So, in essence, she is the winner of this race. She beats all the newcomers, she beats all the hotshots, and she wasn't even a racer. She was a trainer. And they make that a huge, big deal throughout the film. You'll never be a racer. You're just a trainer. And then, at the very last minute of the movie, what they do is, not only do they say she won the race, but then they also say that Lightning McQueen won the race because he was the one that started it. And that's not how it works.
Yeah, I don't think you can just switch cars midway through. And if you win the race, you don't get 2 winners because you started and the other person finished. It was such a contrived moment, and it was so eye-rolling. It just made us so annoyed that it finished that way.
Annoying, you said disingenuous. Those are perfect words. Unearned, a completely unearned ending. And it just gives the message to everybody watching that a woman can only do something if a man starts it for her first.
It also gives the message, if you're not good enough, it's good to quit and let somebody better finish for you.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. I was looking to give this movie a higher score up until the very end of this film, and it just disintegrated right in front of my eyes. I felt like I sat there with this scowl on my face. I could feel it seething through my teeth and my eyes, and I was just so angry and disappointed, really.
So that's our final complaint about Cars 3. We already gave our scores for it earlier. So if you're still around...
thank you very much for watching our video and listening to us vent about Cars 3. Like we said, hopefully there's not another one in this series. Let it be over. Let it rest. And thank you for watching our video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Give our video a thumbs up if you like our content, then subscribe to us and follow us. You can also follow us all over the internet at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat. We are at Lolo Loves Films on all of those wonderful handy dandy places. And just like Ferris Bueller said, life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it. Bye!